Hello, and welcome to The Sleepy Owl, a cozy nook where you can gently unwind and drift into a peaceful night's rest. Tonight, we're sharing another soothing story, one that can help settle your mind and foster a feeling of quiet calm. But first, let's take a moment to prepare our bodies and minds for a tranquil, rejuvenating sleep. Settle in comfortably, and with each slow inhale and gentle exhale, allow the day's worries to gradually fade away. It can be challenging to pull away from the day's busyness, particularly as bedtime approaches. Yet remember, the less we stress over falling asleep quickly, the easier it becomes for our minds to release any tension. Let the gentle rhythm of your breath carry off lingering concerns, and let tonight's story be your guide toward deep relaxation. Now make yourself comfortable and let the warmth of the sleepy owl envelop you. Enjoy the story, and may you find a restful, peaceful slumber here in our little nighttime sanctuary. Elara surfaced gently into consciousness, drawn by the distant lament of gulls and the tender weight of nascent sunlight upon her face. She unfurled her limbs with languid grace beneath the sheets, turning her gaze ceilingward as the soft realization bloomed. Vacation. Her watch, retrieved from the small bedside table, confirmed the early hour. Sleep had been a deep, unbroken solace, leaving her rested, poised for the unfolding languor of the day. A hush lay over most of the small inn, yet she wasn't entirely alone in her waking. From the corridor drifted the faint, precise click of a latch, succeeded by the whisper of careful footfalls descending the stairs. Another soul embracing the dawn, moving with considerate quietude. The thought coaxed a smile. This was serenity itself, the day's perfect, unblemished prelude. Swinging her legs over the side of the bed, Elara pushed aside the cloud-like white comforter. Her feet met the wide, glossy planks of the floor, their painted surfaces worn to a silken smoothness by generations of passage. Rising, she stretched, drawn to the window. Her room surveyed the inn's charming facade. Across the quiet street stood a procession of venerable dwellings, their generous porches hinting at leisurely afternoons. Banners snapped smartly from a few flagpoles. Bicycles leaned casually nearby. Among them, the cheerful, sturdy cruisers, often painted sunshine yellow or petal pink, so emblematic of seaside life. As her gaze lingered, figures moved landward from the shore, wave riders, their vibrant boards underarm, retreating from the ocean's embrace. Doubtless they had greeted the very first light, hours spent communing with the surf. Droplets glistened on their skin, their postures radiating a contented exhaustion as they ambled toward parked cars, surely anticipating a substantial breakfast. Shifting her view, Elara glimpsed the inn's own countenance, bay windows flanked by festive boxes, spilling forth a profusion of petunias. Rocking chairs populated the porch, arranged invitingly alongside small tables perfectly sized for a steaming mug or a sweating glass of lemonade. One guest already occupied this haven, absorbed in a newspaper, a curl of steam rising from his coffee cup, a picture of blissful solitude. Elara made a silent vow to claim such a moment for herself later. She and her friend Maya, nestled in another cozy room just down the hall, had arranged to meet for breakfast when the inn's restaurant commenced service. Their coastal escape had been a spontaneous pact, a shared yearning for a restorative shift in perspective. Here, enveloped in the quietude, Ilara knew their choice was impeccable. This small haven, a historic inn, a tranquil neighborhood, a simple roadside stand for necessities, felt wonderfully secluded. The inn itself possessed the quiet dignity of age, the surrounding homes having materialized gradually around it across the decades. With the vibrant thrum of the city a mere 20 minutes distant, the need for bustling commerce had never taken root here. Conveniences were thoughtfully provided by the inn: umbrellas, chairs, beach diversions. The restaurant offered sustenance, even packaged for seaside picnics. What more could one truly desire? The profound tranquility of this hidden corner was a treasure far exceeding any perceived lack. From her canvas weekender, Alara extracted her beach attire. A particular delight settled over her at the prospect of descending to breakfast clad for pure leisure. She anticipated the sensation of warm sand yielding beneath her toes. The forecast promised flawless conditions for a day surrendered to the shore. After tending to teeth and hair, she laid her beach tote upon the bed, confirming the presence of her current novel, sunglasses, lip balm, and water bottle. With her essentials gathered and a few minutes still to spare before meeting Maya, she resolved to visit the coffee station downstairs first. Retrieving her key, attached to a diamond-shaped plastic fob etched with her room number, she stepped into the hallway, softly securing the weathered white door behind her. The corridor echoed the clean brightness of her room, its painted white floorboards stretching narrowly onward. Staircases anchored either end, descending to the lobby level. Between the room doors hung vintage prints capturing bygone beachgoers in their charmingly modest swimwear. One depicted an antique illustration of a lobster with scientific precision. Elara chose the longer route, traversing the hall to the farther staircase and descending into the lobby's quietude. The front desk stood unattended. A small bell rested upon it, an invitation for immediate service, though Alara hadn't witnessed its use since her arrival. Haste seemed an alien concept here. Entering the well-appointed coffee station, she selected a mug, filling it with a dark, aromatic brew from the dispenser. A cautious sip yielded a robust flavor that earned a satisfied nod. The inn understood the importance of good coffee. Only moments remained before Maya would materialize. Pushing through the screen door, Alara emerged onto the expansive porch. The earlier reader had vanished, leaving the entire space to her. She settled into a wicker chair, placed her mug on an adjacent table, and leaned back, allowing herself a gentle sway. Even at this hour, the air was balmy, caressing her skin. A soft current of air stirred, lifting stray tendrils of hair from her ponytail. The temptation to simply nap right there, to let the entire day drift by on that porch, was potent. Yet the beach beckoned. A few minutes later, the screen door creaked open, and Maya peered out. "Morning," she offered brightly. "Ready for breakfast?" Together, they navigated toward the inn's restaurant. A welcoming host greeted them warmly, guiding them to the screened porch flanking the building. Delight sparked as they were shown to an intimate table for two. Nestled in a sun-drenched corner, their server poured ice water from a charming carafe into their glasses before taking their orders with a promise of a swift return. While awaiting their meal, the two friends consulted a paper copy of the takeout menu, already contemplating lunch provisions for the beach. The offerings ranged temptingly from chilled sandwiches to boardwalk classics like grilled cheese and hot dogs. Elara settled on a lobster roll rich with mayonnaise, while Maya chose chicken salad. One of Elara's enduring affections for beach days was the inexplicable enhancement of lunchtime flavors. Something about the salt air and sandy repose rendered every bite extraordinary. She eagerly anticipated the moment she would sink her teeth into that lobster roll after several hours by the water. As they ate, other diners gradually filled the surrounding tables. A family nearby recounted the previous day's seaside exploits with cheerful animation. Other tables suggested couples enjoying a retreat or old friends reuniting for a weekend. The prevailing mood was one of effortless contentment. Shorts, sun hats, and flip-flops were the dominant attire. Having finished their bagels, freshly squeezed orange juice, and fruit, Elara and Maya pushed back their chairs, gathering their beach totes. They were eager to make the brief pilgrimage to the water's edge and claim their ideal spot for the day. Passing back through the lobby and onto the front porch, they availed themselves of the complimentary beach gear. Maya selected an umbrella, while Elara chose two lightweight chairs equipped with shoulder straps for easy transport. They descended the front steps, merging with the gentle flow of people heading toward the surf. The neighborhood exuded such profound peace that sidewalks seemed superfluous. Residents simply emerged from their houses along the street, embarking on the 5-minute stroll to the sand, laden with their day's necessities. It was all remarkably uncomplicated. Elara marveled inwardly at the sheer luxury of lodging so intimately close to the ocean. Their location transformed the entire experience. Within moments, the friends reached the steps leading down to the sand, an inviting golden ribbon unfurling before them. Fortuitously, the tide was low, granting the beach its most generous expanse for the time being. Children, arriving with their parents, instantly shed their sand pails and shovels, racing each other toward the shimmering waterline. Their parents exchanged amused glances, calmly selecting locations that appeared safe from the encroaching tide, at least until the afternoon's turn. Elara and Maya followed their example, judging the sand's texture. They planted their umbrella where the sand was dry and yielding, not damp and packed smooth, territory the tide hadn't recently claimed. Traveling light, just the two of them, their setup was swift. Umbrella unfurled, two chairs oriented toward the gently glittering surf. Sinking into her seat, Elara released a profound sigh, closing her eyes. The rhythmic sigh of the waves drifted soothingly across the sand, punctuated by the occasional faint cry of a gull. A light breeze carried the invigorating scent, the elusive taste of salt. She wished she could suspend time. This was perfection itself. For several minutes, silence settled between the friends, a shared space for absorbing the beauty of the place. Then companionable chatter flowed effortlessly for a time. Eventually, both Elara and Maya retrieved their novels, succumbing to a tacit understanding that this interlude was dedicated to literary immersion. Around them, other beach dwellers settled into their own rhythms. A nearby family embarked on constructing an ambitious sand fortress, their small children making tireless journeys to the surf, buckets brimming with water destined for the moat. The sand's thirsty absorption mattered little. The fetching itself was pure joy. A young couple tossed a frisbee back and forth, their dog leaping exuberantly between them, striving to intercept the soaring red disk. Occasional errant throws were cheerfully retrieved and returned by neighboring sunbathers, most of whom also requested permission to greet the friendly canine, who seemed eager to befriend every soul on the beach. No boardwalk hummed nearby. No advertising banners trailed from airplanes overhead. No traffic noise intruded. This beach truly felt like a cherished secret, shielded from the world's clamor. In this unhurried fashion, time elapsed unnoticed. Elara wasn't certain how long she'd read before realizing the sun rode high in the sky, and she had drifted into slumber, her book resting open on her lap. Stirring, she glanced at Maya, who regarded her with an understanding smile over the top of her own book. Though unsure of the precise hour, Elara knew she was decidedly ready for the lobster roll she'd brought. They opened their lunch bag, unwrapping their sandwiches with keen anticipation, nestling cold water bottles beside them in the sand, and tearing open bags of potato chips with a satisfying crackle. The tide had crept closer during their repose. Children who had been dynamos of energy hours earlier now sought the shade of parental tents and umbrellas, claiming their midday nourishment. Elara observed a mother nearby, cradling a sleeping baby across her lap. The sea air possessed a unique duality, simultaneously refreshing and profoundly soporific. The lobster roll and chicken salad sandwich was soon dispatched. Both, Elara and Maya concurred, were superb. Dusting stray crumbs from her lap, Elara stood, announcing her intention to dip her toes in the water. Maya nodded assent. Prolonged basking had rendered the sparkling ocean irresistible. Elara ambled down to the wave line, watching as the surf crept up the sand to lave her ankles. The water offered a welcome, bracing chill, a perfect counterpoint to the hours spent absorbing the sun's warmth. Bending, she splashed some of the frigid water onto her shoulders and the back of her neck. Shielding her eyes, she surveyed the aquatic activity. A woman floated placidly on an inner tube nearby, consuming an ice cream sandwich. Now there's an inspired idea, Elara thought with an inward grin. She stood, observing the wet sand beneath her feet as the water surged in, paused, then receded with a gentle hiss. Flecks of some glittering golden substance were embedded in the sand, visible only when submerged. It possessed a subtle beauty. Wandering along the surf's edge, she reached a rocky outcrop riddled with tide pools. Balancing carefully on the uneven surfaces, she peered into the captured pockets of seawater, watching minuscule hermit crabs scuttle about their miniature worlds. Children knelt nearby, examining the creatures with intense focus. One boy scrambled back toward his parents on the drier sand, eager to report his thrilling discovery. Looking up from the pools, Elara saw Maya, now appearing small and distant on the beach. She slowly retraced her steps along the advancing tide line until she regained their umbrella and settled back into her chair. Retrieving her book, Elara noticed that Maya had dozed off and smiled inwardly. Even that brief shoreline excursion had renewed her desire to simply sit and be still. As the afternoon deepened, time seemed to suspend its forward motion. Elara frequently looked up from her novel, adrift in agreeable contemplation. She watched a man skillfully maneuvering a vibrant kite against the blue expanse and observed the steady growth of the sand fortress nearby. Some of the children, whose energy had seemed boundless earlier, now slept soundly in the shade beside their parents. A few surrounding families began the slow ritual of departure, shaking sand from buckets, filling in excavated holes, collapsing their colorful chairs. The relentless tide was now lapping much closer to their position. When Maya stirred from her nap, Elara confessed to feeling rather warm and simultaneously peckish again. Maya readily agreed it might be an opportune moment to retreat to the inn for a snack and to prepare for dinner. Gathering their belongings at the borrowed beach equipment, Elara and Maya slipped on their flip-flops and ascended the stone steps leading back to the street level. Activity had quickened up there during the late afternoon. Not only were numerous beachgoers concluding their day by the water, but the yards of the homes fronting the street buzzed with life. At one sprawling residence, a family engaged in a light-hearted game of croquet. Next door, preparations were underway for an outdoor meal, children tumbling energetically in and out of the house. Some youngsters appeared freshly bathed and dressed for the evening. Others, still gloriously sandy in their swimsuits, awaited their turn, chasing each other across the lawn with dripping popsicles. Soon, Elara and Maya arrived back at the inn, relieving themselves of their umbrella and chairs with gratitude on the porch. After a thorough dusting, they carefully returned the borrowed items to their designated spot, ready for the next guests. Stepping into the lobby, they were met with a delightful surprise. The afternoon coffee hour was in full swing. Alongside hot beverages and iced lemon water lay a tray of warm chocolate chip cookies, each nestled invitingly in its own paper sleeve. Elara selected one that looked particularly promising, smiling as she slid it free and took a bite. The cookie was yielding and soft, generously studded with large crystals of sugar, the semi-sweet chocolate chips still slightly molten. Sinking into two plush easy chairs in the lounge area, Elara and Maya exchanged wide, contented grins as they savored their cookies in companionable silence. These treats were the perfect interlude before their later dinner reservation. They observed the ebb and flow of people through the lobby for a while. Some exchanged warm greetings. Others approached the desk attendant with queries. After a comfortable interval, Maya suggested they separate for a bit to rest and refresh themselves in their rooms. They concurred, adding a plan to reconvene at twilight for a neighborhood stroll before dinner. In single file, they ascended the old wooden staircase. Reaching the upper hall, they parted with a promise to meet again shortly in the lobby. Elara slid her key, with its familiar plastic fob, into the lock. It turned with a satisfying mechanical clunk, and the door swung inward. Her room welcomed her, bathed in the warm afternoon sun filtering through the window, her bed a haven of piled white linens. She exhaled a breath of pure contentment. After preparing for dinner, Elara settled into the decadent orange velvet chair positioned by the window. From this regal vantage point, she watched people amble along the street below. The petunias in the window box nodded cheerfully in the breeze. She observed the various groups migrating homeward from their own late afternoon pursuits, a nap, a game, a chat with friends. Leaning her head against the chair's high back, she took several slow, deep breaths. She couldn't recall the last time she had felt so utterly unbound by tension. Without conscious intent, Elara drifted into a light doze. She awoke to the gentle flutter of her white curtains, silhouetted against the descending sun. A glance at her watch assured her she hadn't slept long. She was perfectly on schedule to meet Maya. Rising and stretching, she moved slowly about the room, collecting her small purse and key. Then she slipped back into the quiet hallway, locking her door just as Maya emerged from her own room a few doors down, doing likewise. Together, they descended to the lobby. The coffee station remained, though the cookies had been cleared in anticipation of the dinner service. Peeking into the restaurant, Elara saw servers arranging tables and seating the first diners of the evening. Their walk would perfectly prime them for a relaxed meal. As they pushed through the swinging screen door onto the porch, the faint, musical clinking of water glasses drifted from within the inn. Turning instinctively toward the beach, they were greeted by a sky ablaze with pink and orange, a spectacular sunset. Numerous people had emerged into their yards to witness the resplendent celestial canvas. As they ambled down the street, curiosity drew their attention to the unfolding scenes at each residence. The houses themselves were a delightful tapestry of individuality, each reflecting the era of its construction and the owner's distinct taste. A modest Cape Cod, with its slanted roof and charming shutters, might stand beside a sleek contemporary structure boasting vast expanses of glass, which in turn neighbored a classic farmhouse-style home with a broad, welcoming porch. Many yards featured tables and outdoor seating, clear evidence of frequent alfresco dining. In one yard, they observed a woman reclining peacefully in a hammock with a little girl. At this hour, as dusk settled and interiors glowed warmly, open windows offered glimpses of lives unfolding within. People sipping drinks on sofas, gathering around cheese boards, even the sound of a piano drifting out. At one home, a collection of sand toys dried near the garage while a man played catch with two small girls in the front garden. Dogs pranced with contained excitement behind picket fences. What an idyllic existence for a dog, Elara mused. She noticed a growing trend. More residents were appearing outside, setting up luminaries to line their driveways. White paper bags were positioned along walkways, partially filled with sand to anchor them, each cradling a lit candle in its center. Homes without luminaries often compensated with strings of white lights woven around trees and fences. Maya recalled seeing a flyer mentioning that today was designated the Night of White Lights, explaining the festive illuminations. Elara found it utterly charming. The street shimmered with a gentle beauty. Their circuit eventually brought them along a stretch paralleling the beach. The tide, having reached its zenith while they rested, was now receding once more. Figures could be seen scattered along the shore in pairs and small groups, seemingly drawn from their evening routines to admire the moonrise or toss toys for gleeful dogs. Elara was particularly charmed by the observation that most appeared to have wandered the block or two entirely barefoot. Returning to the inn, Elara and Maya marveled at the perfect timing of their walk's conclusion. They re-entered the lobby and waited patiently for the restaurant host to lead them to their reserved table. The ambiance within the spacious dining room was now enchanting. Votive candles flickered on every table, and the two screened porches hummed with the quiet conversation of diners leaning over their meals. Elara and Maya were seated at a snug table in an alcove, perfectly positioned to feel the warm evening breezes drifting past. Perusing the menus, they found themselves spoiled for choice. The offerings catered to diverse palates: impeccably fresh seafood, satisfying pastas, wood-fired pizzas, and more. After considerable deliberation, Elara chose a seafood pasta, while Maya opted for pizza. Both dishes proved sublime, precisely what was needed after a long, leisurely day by the sea. Why, Elara pondered idly, did mere relaxation by the sand induce such profound hunger? It remained one of life's pleasant mysteries. They concluded their meal by sharing a slice of cheesecake. Elara made a point to relish every mouthful, carefully sectioning off small bites with her fork, appreciating the dessert's dense creaminess. Once the last crumb of cheesecake vanished, both had to concede they were utterly prepared for bed. The friends felt replete, content, and more profoundly relaxed than either could readily recall. Expressing their gratitude to the server and the host, they ambled slowly back into the lobby. The sole occupant now was the nighttime desk attendant, engaged in clearing the last vestiges of the coffee service and preparing the station for the morning's renewal. She turned and offered them a warm smile. "Did you enjoy your dinner?" she inquired kindly. They both nodded affirmation, murmuring that it had been wonderful. And indeed, it had. Elara and Maya each poured a fresh glass of water from the dispenser before heading upstairs. Parting ways on the landing with murmured good nights, they knew this day, in its simple perfection, would linger fondly in their memories. Back within the sanctuary of her room, Elara melted with relief into the embrace of her large, soft bed. Her gaze swept appreciatively around the lovely space. Thanks to the persistent balminess, the windows remained open, admitting the occasional murmur of conversation or the whir of a bicycle from the street below. Propping herself against a mountain of white pillows, Elara angled her book into the golden circle cast by the bedside lamp. The silence within the room felt absolute, cocooning her from the seaside town, murmuring outside. She had entertained the notion of finishing her novel, but soon her eyelids grew heavy, signaling sleep's undeniable summons. Setting the book aside for the morrow, she flattened the pillows, reached over, and extinguished the lamp. Turning onto her side, she gazed drowsily at the sliver of moonlight painting a luminous path across the white floorboards. In the darkness, she thought hazily, everything here seemed rendered in gold and white. The salty breeze stirred her curtains once more. As she surrendered to sweet dreams, the final conscious sound was the distant rhythmic cadence of surf meeting sand. Then she slept. Good night. Underfoot, parchment dry leaves shatter with each step down the meandering country lane. Ahead, a destination marker swings slightly. Somber squash's pumpkin patch, etched into a slab of timber hung from an old sun-silvered wooden gate. Far beyond, forested peaks wear an intricate quilt of autumn's signature hues. Here, though, the land stretches flatter, a perfect cradle for cultivating gourds. The heavens arch in a soft cerulean, dotted with downy drifting clouds. A glance downward reveals an exquisite maple leaf fallen from the towering crimson and gold sentinel beside you. Bending, you carefully pinch its stem. Held aloft against the sun's gentle luminescence, its precise architecture is a marvel, unlike its crisp brethren scattered nearby. This one remains pliable, still holding the memory of moisture from its life among branches. Too lovely to abandon, you decide, tucking it tenderly into your satchel as a memento. As you approach the gate, a soft current of air sighs past. A cool whisper fell through the weave of your shirt. Instinctively, you draw your fine wool scarf a fraction tighter. The gate's metal clasp yields to your thumb with a protesting rattle and groan, betraying its many seasons. Decades, surely, it has stood sentinel over this farmstead. Securing the latch behind you, you turn, and the air immediately thickens with the heady perfume of ripened pumpkins mingled with the sweet, sharp tang of apples. A brief dirt pathway flanked by tall, slender trees marks the entrance proper. Leaves, a mosaic of scarlet, ochre, russet, and gold, lie strewn across the pale earth track. Some offer a satisfying crunch underfoot. Others, still yielding, remain silent. You draw near a small timbered kiosk, the point of entry. A woman, Ilara, sits within, offering a warm welcome. Kind words are exchanged before you retrieve the necessary coins from your pocket, placing them in her palm. Her smile broadens as the metal cash box clinks open. She presents you with a ticket. For a moment, you trace its papery surface with your fingertips, turning it over once, twice, before sliding it safely away. Past the booth, the full expanse of the patch unfurls. Gourds, in a startling variety of sizes and colors, populate the view. Diminutive orange pie pumpkins nestle near the pale, spectral forms of ghost pumpkins, their glossy white skins and thick, dark stems catching your eye. You ponder their taste. Acerbic or saccharine? It has been some time since your last visit. The sheer diversity Mother Nature conjures, green, dappled yellow, even party-colored specimens, had almost faded from memory. Your gaze drifts, taking in more than just the pumpkins. A white barn with a stark black roof stands nearby, an architectural echo of the ghost gourds. Signs point towards further adventures, a corn maze, an apple orchard, hay rides, a bonfire. An especially inviting nook promises treats and warm beverages. A mental note is made for later. To your right, a large map is displayed on a wooden signpost. You trace the route to the apple orchard, committing the general layout to memory, then set off towards it, anticipating the bite of a perfectly crisp red apple. For a time, you follow a narrow path bordered by displays of painted pumpkins, festive adornments, and substantial hay bales. It's an unhurried day at the patch, you observe. A few families and small groups wander, but the atmosphere is far from crowded. A peaceful outing seems assured, a thought that brings quiet contentment. Soon, you reach the orchard. It's quite intimate, perhaps a dozen trees in all. Yet each is laden, dripping with globes of crimson fruit and vibrant green leaves. Both apples and foliage carpet the faded grass beneath. A gentle zephyr weaves through the trees, the crisp air brushing your arms. Though clad in a warm cardigan and scarf, the light wind finds the small interstices in the knit. Yet, beneath the soft autumn sun, cocooned in wool, a profound sense of comfort settles over you. Strolling slowly, you witness a burnished red apple detach itself from a branch just ahead, bouncing into a drift of fallen leaves. Intrigued, you approach. Leaves rustle as your hand delves into the pile to retrieve the fruit. It feels satisfyingly firm in your palm as you rotate it, searching for flaws. But it is lustrous, smooth, undeniably ripe. This one, it seems, was destined for you. Exiting the orchard along another dusky path, you encounter a cluster of wooden signs pointing divergently. One, marked with a bold arrow, declares candied apples. Your initial plan was simple fruit, unadorned, but now your senses quicken. Apple in hand, you follow the sign's direction. A minute or two brings you to the promised booth. The stand offers freshly dipped candied and caramel apples adorned with various toppings, but also the chance to craft your own. After a brief chat with Silas, the easygoing farmer presiding over the stall, he hands you a pointed wooden stick. Carefully, you impale the apple, guiding the stick through its base into the core. Once secure, you slowly submerge it into a vat of velvety molten amber sauce. The scent of smoky caramelized sugar drifts upward as the viscous hot liquid cloaks the apple's skin. Your mouth waters in anticipation of the treat. For the final flourish, you roll the sticky sphere in a bed of chopped peanuts. Perfection. Thanking Silas for his assistance, you turn away, heading back toward the main pumpkin patch. A pair of children, hands clasped, dart past, eager for their own apple-dipping turn. Presently, you find a wooden bench, an ideal spot to relax and savor your creation. It emits a low creak as you sit, but feels sturdy beneath you. From this vantage point, the view across the patch is splendid. A straw scarecrow, clad in linen overalls, stands sentinel amidst hundreds of orange pumpkins, large and small. Looking down at the caramel apple, you turn it slowly, admiring your handiwork. Its glossy surface reflects the soft afternoon light and a single branch of the maple tree behind you. Raising it, you sink your teeth carefully into its yielding sweetness. It is every bit as delicious as memory suggested. You linger on the bench, contemplating the patchwork realm of gourds spread before you. The distant mountains meet an uneven horizon line defined by ripe orange globes. From here, it looks as though a tangled medley of curly and straight stems pokes defiantly at the skyline. The very air breathes autumn, whispers of cinnamon and apple, the earthy aromas of caramel and pumpkin spice mingling with notes of fallen leaves, rich soil, and dry straw. Every element conspires to wrap you in warmth and ease. The urge to select a pumpkin stirs, but you decide to wait. Carrying a heavy gourd now seems premature, with more exploring yet to do. For now, you simply ponder the possibilities. Which size, which shape would be best? As you continue observing the patch, you watch families, couples, solitary wanderers drifting through rows of vines and earth. Some capture moments with cameras, Others hunt for the quintessential orange squash, bending low, expressions of focused curiosity on their faces. Small red wagons carry children clutching treasured pumpkins, while other visitors tuck their chosen gourds under their arms. After some moments, you rise from the creaking bench and proceed towards the black and white barn noted earlier. It lies just beyond the apple orchard you recently departed. Instead of retracing your steps rightward, you opt for a path veering left. As the day matures, the breeze gains a sharper edge. You fasten another button on your cardigan, seeking greater warmth, a snugger embrace against the cooling air. Walking towards the barn, you spot a few crows winging across the sky overhead, conversing in sharp caws. Looking up, you admire the cloud-strewn heavens, noticing how the autumnal sun has begun its gentle descent. Another left turn brings you to the rustic structure situated centrally within the patch. It appears to be a hub for the farm staff and visitors alike. One farmer stands, boot propped against the barn wall, chatting with another. Periodically, both sip from steaming mugs cradled in their palms. One man wears loose overalls over a brown plaid shirt. The other, blue jeans with a simple shirt tucked neatly at the waist. Both sport comfortable-looking boots. They share laughter and conversation, clearly enjoying their warm drinks. The soft rustle of leaves in a nearby tree captures your attention. Turning, you watch several detach themselves, twirling in a brief, graceful ballet before settling onto the grass. A few others, caught by the breeze, are lofted toward the barn, drawing your gaze along with them. From the corner of your eye, you notice a group of horses within an unpainted picket fence, cropping the turf peacefully. You watch their slow, methodical grazing, their contented munching. A smile touches your lips as you admire them from a distance for several minutes. One horse is a deep chocolate brown, its mane a perfect match. The other boasts a coat of golden brown crowned with a blonde mane. A gust of wind playfully tosses their fine hair. They shake their heads, clearing their vision before returning their focus to the grass. Truly noble beasts, you reflect. Just then, another farmer emerges from behind the barn. She begins to groom the chocolate brown horse, which seems to relish the attention. Deciding it's time to move on, you leave the horses to their grooming and grazing. All around, the pumpkin patch hums with gentle life. You spot a tractor pulling a wagon laden with hay bales. Families gather, awaiting their turn for a ride around the farm. You knew these excursions were a staple here, and briefly considered joining, imagining the crisp October air rushing past as the wagon bumped along. But you elect to leave the experience to those already waiting. As the wagon fills and departs, you find yourself momentarily alone near the barn. The quiet descends, profound and calming. Small wonder your mind feels so serene, so relaxed in this place. A distinct crackling sound carries towards you from the barn's far side. Recalling the map, you realize that must be the bonfire pit. You walk towards it, noticing faint smoke rising as the snapping and popping grow louder. You arrive at a circle formed of cut logs, centered around a medium-sized bonfire glowing amongst rocks. The familiar, comforting aroma of burning wood fills your senses. Few things feel more quintessentially autumnal. The entrance to this area is marked by an archway of cut wood adorned with dried corn stalks. 2 hay bales flank the entrance, displaying a charming assortment of squash. Passing through the arch, you appreciate the thoughtful details evident throughout the patch. Above, fairy lights form a twinkling canopy around the fire pit. Below, sturdy hay bales and logs offer seating. To your right, a covered area houses vendors serving treats and warm drinks. The temperature is noticeably dropping as evening approaches. A hot beverage promises welcome warmth. You happily approach the shelter, where the air is thick with cinnamon and spice. The cheerful crackle of the bonfire remains audible behind you, setting a perfect ambiance. A handwritten menu on a chalkboard details the offerings: pumpkin spice hot chocolate, warm apple cider, coffee. After brief deliberation, you choose the pumpkin spice hot chocolate, fitting for the location, homemade according to the sign, and its earthy, chocolatey fragrance already seems to be beckoning. The attendant smiles, handing you the drink in a dark green ceramic mug decorated with pumpkins. You pay, offer thanks, and wave farewell. Turning, you glance back at the inviting bonfire, wishing for such a feature in your own backyard. You envision roasting marshmallows, watching them crisp golden brown before yielding to a gooey, sweet interior. Friends gathered close, sharing ghost stories appropriate for the season. Huddled near the flames, exchanging tales, warmed by hot cider and tea. The lengthening nights would feel less daunting in good company. Crossing the grass, you settle onto one of the hay bales. Your palm registers the rough, dry texture of the straw, its dusty scent weaving between notes of the hot chocolate you hold. Taking a deep, slow breath, you feel relaxation deepen within you. Raising the mug, you inhale its intoxicating fragrance more fully. Then, lowering it to your lips, you take a generous sip of the pleasantly warm liquid. It infuses you with comfort, soothing from the inside out. Closing your eyes, you focus purely on sensation. The susurrus of leaves in the surrounding maples and birches, the companionable crackle of the nearby fire. Autumn's scents envelop you. A profound peace settles in your soul. As the sun dips lower, surrendering to the encroaching night, the fairy lights seem to intensify their sparkle, the fire radiate greater warmth. It has been a beautiful day. Now, you simply sit, sipping your hot chocolate, appreciating the season's crispness, the fire's glow, the breezes murmur. Later, the perfect pumpkin will be chosen, claimed for home. And who knows, perhaps that backyard fire pit will become a reality this season. Perhaps friends will gather for homemade pumpkin pies and stories. It needn't remain a dream, you muse, letting the atmosphere of this place saturate your senses. Cradling the warm mug in both hands, you sit, wrapped in tranquility, snug and satisfied, offering silent gratitude to Mother Nature for autumn's beauty and this wonderful day spent amidst the somber squashes.